Let me just say, after view distorting the belt, they're proclaiming the real world champion. I'm going to tell you all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
Woo! Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network, powered up by the Belly Up Sports Network of podcasts. Sit back and enjoy as we bring you the latest and greatest in the world of sports, everything from the Detroit Lions to the state of Michigan sports to around the country and around the world. So what are you waiting for? Let's get out there and let's watch the latest edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. And welcome, everybody, to the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the Belly Up Sports Network of podcasts, and, of course, on the Captain Lou Sports Network on Facebook, and or I should say on YouTube. Facebook, too, why not? Our Facebook page, the Captain Lou Extravaganza. It's November 1st. It's a Tuesday, and it's been a crazy day in the NFL. We're going to talk all about that. The NFL trade deadline. Of course, our Lions making a big splash this afternoon as they sent TJ Hawkinson packing to the Minnesota Vikings for draft picks, along with a later round draft pick as well. We're going to talk about that at length tonight. We got a couple of folks coming on tonight, including in a couple of minutes our old friend of the show, Jimmy Young from the great UP. We're going to talk NFL football with him. We'll talk about the trade, all the trades going on. We'll talk with him, too, about the World Series going on. Game 3 is going to start at the top of the hour, about 8 or 8:15 here tonight, as the Philadelphia Phillies and the Houston Astros are all tied up at 1 apiece. So can't wait to talk to Jimmy about that and pick his brain on that. Also, we'll talk to him a little bit about the fiasco that was Michigan and Michigan State after the game. I've got my thoughts on it. I will share those towards the end of the show as well. It was a crazy sight. It almost like a hollow victory to me. I thought about it the other day. I'm still kind of processing it. I know Michigan State has suspended 4 players, and then it came down about an hour and a half ago, maybe 2 hours ago, that they suspended 4 more, including probably their best defensive player in Windman, the UNLV transfer. So now they've got 8 players that are suspended immediately and indefinitely. Not a good look for Michigan State right now. And, of course, Michigan isn't blameless in this one either. So, please don't take that. You all know me. I'm a Michigan fan. You can see the paraphernalia in the background there. But, it was a great win if you're a Michigan fan until the game was over, and then that stuff that went on in the tunnel. We'll talk to Jimmy about that at length. And coming up at 8 o'clock, Greg Simbeck's going to join us. He is a Vikings reporter, one of our beat reporters here at the Belly Up Network, bellyupsports.com. He's going to join us and get his take on the TJ Hawkinson trade to the Vikings. And, my initial thoughts on that is Kirk Cousins has no more excuses. He has got himself surrounded with all-pro talent, with Dalvin Cook, with Jefferson, with Thielen, and now with TJ Hawkinson. My only thing with Hawkinson is Detroit wasn't going to pay him. And, he's often been injured. He's a great blocker. When he's healthy, he's dynamic. He can make some great catches. He's a threat. But he hasn't been all that dependable in Detroit. Let's face it. He wasn't a draft pick of Holmes, so I could see why he got rid of him. But now Brad Holmes is on the clock. And my other thing is Dan Campbell going to get a free ride now for next year? That's kind of my thinking on it. And we'll talk to Jimmy about this here in a little bit, but my thoughts on Dan Campbell, I was all in. I drank the Kool-Aid. I always do, but I drank the Kool-Aid with him on that as well. We'll also talk tonight a little bit about the college football playoff. The first rankings were announced, and Tennessee's number 1, Georgia's Ohio State is 2, Georgia 3, and Clemson 4. Michigan is 5, and Alabama 6. Not really surprised. I thought Michigan might be ahead of Clemson, but it's all going to play itself out when Michigan and Ohio State play Thanksgiving weekend, as they always do. The winner of that will more than likely get a spot in the Big Ten championship or into the playoff. And so that's going to be the de facto championship game the week before the actual Big Ten championship game. As we all know, the Big Ten West is, well, maybe not so much anymore with Illinois. Forgot about them. They're ranked 12th. They're coming up, but I don't think they have enough juice unless they were to upset Ohio State. But boy, that would open up a can of worms, wouldn't it, with teams like TCU in the mix and Oregon and UCLA or whatever. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. As I mentioned, we'll be joined by Jimmy Young here in a few minutes on the show. And we'll see if we can't have some fun banter with him back and forth as we talk a little football and whatnot. So, hey, be a part of the show. You can reach out on us. Follow me on Twitter at The Real Captain Lou, or follow our Facebook page, The Captain Lou Extravaganza, or drop me an email at sweetlou1965@yahoo.com. And also, I'm going to be getting my website back up. That is captainlou.net. We'll be getting that going here by the end of the week. Got a lot of crazy stuff that's been on my mind. Just like everybody else, doing 5,000 things at once. Kind of let that slide a little bit, but we hope to get that back going here real shortly. So another way you can get in touch with us or just keep track of me as well here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So again, big win for Michigan on Saturday night, 29-7 over Michigan State. I know they kicked a lot of field goals. I get it. It's funny because I talked to some people that are Michigan State fans too, and my dad included. And it almost was like in the second half, did they hold back a little bit on some of the playbook? And I know that may sound cheesy because I know they wanted to win that game, and I believe they wanted to win it too, real bad. But, with the 29-7 lead, I don't know, something where they totally dominated. I guess it really didn't matter to me. But right now, let us get to the Captain Lou Extravaganza guest line, and let's bring in an old pal of the show. We've had some fun banter back and forth, and I know we're going to have some tonight. Jimmy Young's going to join us. Jimmy, my friend, how are you? Welcome back to the show. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you, Captain. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Just kind of thinking a little bit about the big trade. We kind of bantered a little bit back and forth on Facebook on this trade with TJ Hawkinson going to the Vikings. And I know it kind of broke one of your unwritten rules, and that is trading within the division, and I don't know with I just don't know. A lot of unwritten rules just aren't there. They don't follow them anymore. But I really personally don't mind the trade. Let me get your thoughts on it first.
Well, Lou, first off, I got to thank you for having me tonight. Okay. And secondly, nobody wants to face that Brewer 3-man rotation in the playoffs. Okay. All right.
That's right.
So we have to get that out of the way. We've been hearing that since the All-Star break.
Yep.
Nobody wants to face the Brewers pitching staff in the playoffs. Well, Lou, they forgot one thing. They have to get there.
That's right. That's right.
But anyway, the trade deadline, and we had some banter back and forth, and I had someone fire whatever, and I don't want to say a questionable text, but who says you can't trade within the divisions? My comment was, well, it's an unwritten rule in sports.
Yeah.
You think of Brett Favre when he wanted out of Green Bay.
Yeah.
The Packers come, excuse my French, hell or high water. They weren't going to trade him to an in-division rival. They treaded water. He went to the Jets, and he came back and bit them.
Yeah.
You think of all the trades in the NFL that we've seen in the last 3 weeks. The Bears, 2 stud defensive players. Where'd they go? Not in the division. Seattle knew they're going to lose Wilson. And we're going to get you as far away as we can from the NFC West. It's just something you just don't. And Lou, we're old. I don't believe in you want. I mean, even these people Hawkinson is injured all the time. He's this, he's that. At the end of the day, how many tight ends are relevant in the NFL besides Kelsey? And you can go out to San Francisco with their tight end. But how many are relevant day in and day out? To me, Hawkinson wasn't a top 5 tight ends in the NFL. And even when he's healthy, and a lot of people don't look at, you got to look at the people that ownerships put around these people.
Yeah.
When they go to other places, we go to Barry Sanders. That's why he retired. Calvin Johnson. You look at Big Play Slay. They go to better teams. Do you want to actually see a guy like that, Lou, who can potentially 8 out of 10 bite you in the back end so bad it's going to hurt for about 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I know. He was going to want big time money after next year. He was going to want at least $15 million and a year. And there's no way he was worth it to me. And he didn't prove it to me. Now, here's what everybody's going to say, and it's like I said to somebody, he'll have 2 or 3 good games this year with the Vikings because they've got the talent around him. They've got other people that they will key on. Then they're all of a sudden going to make him out to be the next Mike Ditka. And that's what's going to make me laugh. And then they're going to see, and I don't wish injury on anybody, but the guy has not been able to stay healthy. And I don't mind the trade. I really don't. I know it's no secret now, Jimmy, that they're 1-6. The Lions are, the only win to your Commanders, which you still owe me that adult beverage that we will cash in on next spring, big fella. But I just think that I don't mind the trade. I think they're stockpiling draft picks. I know it's the same old song, same old shit. Pardon my French for the Lions since 1957. But, at least they're honest with it. Jimmy, my next question on this, does this trade mean that our boy, not your boy, but my guy, Dan Campbell, is going to get a free ride into next year? Is this going to be his get out of jail free card to survive until next year to be a part of this rebuild?
Well, looking at the presser about a couple hours ago from the one of the Lions ownership group, it's a process, it's a this, it's a that. I get all that, but I mean, it's getting ridiculous. And again, you have to look at the people running this organization. At the end of the day, I mean, Dan Campbell, I love the guy. I love the root canal. Will knock your kneecaps off.
Yeah,
they can't stop anyone.
No.
And we go back to this Hawkinson thing with Detroit. Yeah, he got injured all the time. But when he's your primary blocker, your number 1A receiver, and you're asking me to do schemes against the grain against a nickel or dime defense in a base 5 defense, you're in Minnesota. You turn the ball. I'm not a big fan of Cousins. You can turn around and give it to a Delvin Cook. There's 4 or 5 yards. We can utilize these guys better. But the way this Lions, and again, I want to see the Lions do well, because when they do well, it makes football do well, like high school sports. You don't see bad team. But at the end of the day, you just got to scratch your head. And Lou, I think you're right. From what I seen today from the Hap girl, it's almost like we're going to ride this storm out, but how much longer you keep riding this storm? I mean, you're going on 30-some years.
I'm telling you, it's ridiculous, and I drank the Kool-Aid, but, I do every year. And I watched the Hard Knocks. He had me believing, just like the guy from the Rams when they were on Hard Knocks, Fisher, Mr. 8-8. Right. But the decisions he's made, Jimmy, we could talk for 2 hours on that. Some of these bonehead decisions that he's made. But I want to get your thoughts on a few other things. We let's just go to the World Series real quick. I wanted to. The Phillies in Houston, I don't think anybody suspected the Phillies to come in, but it was really cool. Last Friday on my way to the football game that I broadcasted, I had a chance to listen to Larry Boa. They had him on Mad Dog Sports on his Sirius XM. And I
love Mad Dog. I love Russo. He's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And they were talking about when these guys met in the NLCS. And it kind of makes me think of how the Phillies are right now, because they went into that after they beat Houston and Nolan Ryan. They were like they were on house money. And I think this Phillies team is playing on house money right now. To me, if they can win one game here or one of the games here, I think then the pressure is still going to be on Houston, and I don't know if they can handle it. I know they're the better team, but as we've noticed, the Phillies weren't the better team going in.
Well, no doubt. I think this is going back to Houston. I can't see this being settled on Philly. Yeah, my pick going in was Houston into the playoffs because I love Dusty Baker.
Yes.
But it's not how good you are, it's how hot you are coming into the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Phillies, I think, had the second or third best record in the second half. The managerial change, and they got hot at the back end when Harper came back. And we look at Houston with Verlander. You realize he has the highest ERA in 30-plus innings of all pitchers in Major League Baseball in the playoffs.
Isn't that something?
He's terrible in the postseason. But I love the way this Philly team – and you mentioned Larry Bowa just about 20 minutes ago. He was on the MLB pregame show, and he made one comment where the Houston fan base was like a library. They're not going to realize what they see when they get to Philly tonight. Because I go back to, like you said, those old series with the Phillies and the Astros. And I mean, that Philly fan base is rabid.
Yeah.
And Houston might be in a little bit deeper right now than most people thought. And I'd love to see Dusty Baker win one. But this Philadelphia team kind of grabs you by the coattails, doesn't it? It
does, and I'd like their starting pitching and you got Bryce Harper. He's on a mission because, Washington won it after he left. And
right.
I think,
exactly.
And I think that's part of it too. And I'm with you with Dusty. I've been a fan of his, even when he played back in the 70s, and with the Dodgers and whatnot. And the guy has been good wherever he's been. He just has not been able to get that title. And I just would love to see that for him. And then, he can ride off into the sunset if that's what he wants to do.
Well, and it's going to be fun to watch. And the baseball playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, they're great theater. Every series is a chapter. But these baseball playoffs have been wild, and the only thing predictable is the unexpected. It's been one hell of a ride, though. It really has, and just seeing the drama and the emotion. You think of the games won late. What Harper has done in the postseason. You look at how the Yankees, and I've said it all year, the Yankees are a good team. They're not a playoff team.
Right.
You need pitching to get through. How many times have we said this, Lou, in any sport?
Yeah.
You can get into the playoffs with good teams, but once you get into the playoffs, you better have everything.
Well,
pitching, hitting, in football, you better have all four aspects. In hockey, you can't play just offense. You can in the regular season.
Yeah. In
the postseason, you better bring it all. And we go on and on with this, but we're seeing another perfect example of how this is shaken down here.
And my question too, before we switch topics, is you got the folks like you and me that love baseball. We've watched it for, over half a decade. But my question is, does the American public really care that much anymore about baseball? You've got football is dominating everything. Baseball schedules their World Series around it, around football, and let's face it, I'm not a big fan of the NBA. I like it, but it's not riveting to me. But I think the younger crowd loves the NBA and the NFL. And I think baseball has got an image problem. And I think it's, unfortunately, folks, I think, are missing out on what's been a great postseason.
And the worst thing with baseball was the lockouts and the strikes over the last 15, 20 years. Yeah. And, now they're trying to counterpunch NFL a little bit. And I'm like Lou, I'm like, on your page with the NBA. I mean, I've said this publicly on my shows. It's one step away from the WWE. I mean, great athletes, I get it, but this LeBron James fiasco. Now you've got Nash getting fired in New Jersey. You've got the malcontent with Durant. I mean, that's an embarrassment for sports, but they keep running out. But baseball now is trying to come in and interfere with the NFL midway point. And right now, at the rainout last night, you could potentially have the Game 7 this coming Sunday to go head-to-head with the NFL. Yeah. But they're trying but some reason or another, with all the shenanigans in the NFL, they just seem that a lot of people realize, Lou, the NFL is the second most powerful industry in the world.
Isn't that
not
something?
In sports, in the world when it comes to dollars and cents. You're talking multi-billion-dollar owners. And you think of all these owners, They're older folks. They're archaic. They're old school, and they're not going to bend. You look in Houston, Dallas. You look at New England with Kraft. Look at the Green Bay Packer organization with stockholders. There's some older people that are pulling the strings, and they have so much money. They're basically controlling the whole sports world. Then we got my favorite sport and probably your favorite sport, the NHL, they're just under the radar. It's a blue-collar sport. You go to NHL game, the players are coming out to you. But it's kind of sad, but you're right. It's MLB is trying like heck, and even this late postseason, they're pushing everything back. Now they're going head-to-head with the heavyweight, and personally, I hope they win.
I would love to see him win, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And I'm with you right there. Jimmy, speaking of a heavyweight battle here in Michigan, Saturday night, we had Michigan and Michigan State.
Oh, man.
Terrible. You know me, I'm a Michigan fan. I was glad they won, and the better team on the field prevailed. Right. But the stuff that happened in the tunnel, unfortunately, it's kind of hollow. It made the victory hollow to me. It's like I was telling my brothers-in-law. We have a chat back and forth, and I told them Monday I was driving to work, and I'm thinking, I'm so tired of having to try to defend the behavior of players from Michigan who get on the podium, and the first thing they do is mock the opposing team's coach. And then you've got Michigan State players, now 8 of them, that are suspended, including their best defender. And, it's just, it's a rivalry that's become toxic. And it's like I say, and I've been saying it a lot, there's no nobility in humility anymore. It starts with the upbringing. I get it. But what an embarrassment to college football in the state of Michigan. Another black eye, unfortunately, for Michigan State.
Well, not only in college football, Lou, in sports in general, in news in general. I'm going to go a step further. Society in general has gone to you-know-what.
Yeah.
It's gone bad. Now, I get the emotions. Me and you've talked about the emotion in high school sports.
Mm-hmm.
I did an absolutely wild high school football game last week in the Menominee, Calumet Menominee.
Yeah.
4 lead changes in the last half, 3 in the last 4 minutes. And I had some parents coming up to me after the game in a local eatery/lounge, talking about sports and the emotions and asking my thoughts about people playing high school football. I said, plan 2 visits to the ER. They got ticked off at me. But this is what you're doing with football.
Yeah.
But this whole thing here is sad.
Yeah.
You're looking at the attacks, the helmets in the head. Now, I get everyone's tempered up. I get all this stuff. But where is the respect? And Lou, over the years, and you probably as well, growing up, we've been in some Donnybrooks probably.
Yeah.
But at least have enough, what, if you're going to do this, go one-on-one. I'm not taking sides here.
No.
But if you're going to do this, don't go 6, 7, 8. And the biggest underlying question to me that's really bothering me, when is this going to be back accountability? When are these stadiums going to, it's just such a simple solution, separate tunnels.
Well,
I don't get it. And thirdly, these 2 Michigan players who were in front of the referee in line, you let the visiting team in first, which is state. You got the 5 officials with a basically a phantom police line in front of the home team. But these two people with Michigan have found a way, not once, not twice, but 3 times to get in front of the officials, in with the other team, and cause all kinds of havoc. But at the end of the game, Lou, where do you just sit down and look and say, this is just a game?
It is
on people,
and
I know tennis players aren't going anywhere.
I go back to hockey, and I know this for a lot of folks, this may seem like it's the easy way out to go, but Jimmy, we love the NHL. We love college hockey. Michigan Tech, Northern Michigan, those 2 are bitter enemies. And they play home and homes, just like the teams that I cover in hockey. But at the end of the weekend, or in the NHL, at the end of the 7 games, or in the ACHA, when they're all duking it out at the final game, they might be fighting each other, but they all shake hands in the center of the ice. And you don't see that anymore. I had a good friend of mine, Greg Pond. You probably heard his voice at Tech Northern games. He's a big hockey guy. He said the same thing, and that's why I love hockey. I'm so disillusioned with college football right now. I mean, I'd be a hypocrite if I said I wouldn't be watching it Saturday night, but I'm disillusioned with it because of this stuff right here. And I mean, it's sad. It really is, like you said. And it just makes me yearn and want to just stick to high school sports. That's it.
And where do you get to the point where these universities sit down and look, instead of keep saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but it's never done. But it's just baffling. And now we're getting in this dialogue with this fiasco Saturday night.
Yeah.
Well, who's going to blame? They could have done this. They could have. Well, the bottom line is it's almost, I don't want to bring the COVID word up. We keep bouncing this back and forth. Is anyone going to do anything about it and then keep saying who's going to do something about it?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we'll probably hear this story again in 2 weeks. And all this stuff happens in sports to a certain magnitude.
Yeah.
But the videos are keeping them calling it out there. Now, like you mentioned, we got 3 or 4 more players from state today that have got, I mean, to me, they shouldn't be allowed on campus. I mean, it's just sad how this whole thing is. And part of it, I go back to how society is in sports, and you hit it best, Lou. It's a complete embarrassment, not only to college football, but sports in general. And I think how our society has gone as a group as well.
Well, real quick, Jimmy, I got a couple minutes left. This has been a lot of fun, but they announced the first college football poll about a half hour ago.
Right, I seen that,
and I'm not surprised that Michigan isn't in the top 4. That's going to take care of itself. A little surprised that Tennessee was number 1, because I think Georgia, to me, nothing has proven to me that Georgia's not the best team in the country. If they are, we'll find out. We'll find out on Saturday when they play each other. But I think it's gone pretty much to chalk. I'm not surprised by the top 4.
No, in Tennessee, they got in because of they're in the ACC. Michigan's a good team. Ohio State's is, but something's going to give there. But I'm kind of baffled how Tennessee got in there. And there's a couple bottom feeders in the SEC, but I kind of seen that about 30 minutes ago too as well. And I'm kind of not really looking at things that closely now, but
no.
It's going to sift through the wash, and there's always going to be controversy. There's always going to be this guy, sure, but at the end of the day, this committee, for the most part, has done a good job. But
I agree.
I mean, sooner or later, and I think you're seeing a parity. Saban's falling apart in Alabama because he's ticked off about the like and images deal. And we kind of seen him just kind of cave in last year, going after Jimbo Fisher and Kiffin. But yeah, this. And I would be shocked, Lou, if Georgia doesn't put a 20 spot on Tennessee before they hit the halftime. I really would.
I agree, Jimmy. I think I think Georgia's going to be right up on top, and I think Ohio State Michigan's going to have to play a lot better than they have been. I know they're playing well, but I think that they're going to have to go down to the horseshoe and beat Ohio State.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen. Well, Jimmy, I hate to do this. I got to let you go. Thanks for coming on tonight. Love to have you on again, maybe in a month or so, and we'll maybe talk about your Commanders being close to first place.
Well, I don't think the first place is going to happen, Lou, but the month from now, and you're doing the Freeland football game this week, and I'll be covering a team that so many people have fallen in love with, the North Central Jets.
Yep.
Lou, my math, I did my interviews today. I'm covering the Lakeland and Hubble North Central game. North Central in the last 2+ seasons, I might be off a game or so here, in Division 8, in 8-player football, Division 2, 27-0, 2 state titles, margin of victory, 49+ points. So, it's and Lakeland and Hubble feels confident. But Lakeland and Hubble lost their best player last week with a gruesome Joe Theismann-like leg injury.
Yeah.
And they transported to 2 hospitals who didn't have rooms for him.
Oh, man.
So it's kind of a story that's gravitating up here. And, and your Freeland Falcons are making a run again, and they're in pretty tough coming down the road too, from what I've been from what I've been told.
Yeah, it's going to be. They're pretty much the underdog the rest of the way. Let's hope that they can continue to run, and let's hope that Lake Linden can pull off the upset so we can listen to you more. Jimmy, thanks a lot. We'll see you real soon. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks, Captain. Have a good night and have a good weekend, my friend.
All right, you too. Thank you. Jimmy Young, one of our main contributors here to the Captain Lou Extravaganza. You can hear him as well on pasty.net and radio stations up in the Upper Peninsula. Right now, let's get to our next guest here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. Let's bring him on. It's Greg Simbeck. He is one of our writers for for Belly Up Sports, and he's our Viking writer. And I'll tell you what, Greg, we've tried to get you on a couple of times, and I got to say it's worth the wait after the big trade that happened this afternoon. You guys poaching one of our big players. How you doing?
A lot of news in Vikings land. I didn't come on last night because I had a little fall in the yard, so I got a little black eye here. But I'm just telling people, look, you should see the other guy, right? So
well,
So TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings. From a Vikings perspective, I think it's a great pickup. Irv Smith is either not fully recovered from his injury or I don't know what, but he now has a high ankle sprain. So he's very much needed now. The other thing that Irv's been having trouble with this year is getting separation from the linebackers and D-backs. So TJ Hawkinson is a receiving tight end. They've been kind of relying on Johnny Muntz, who's normally known as a blocker when he was with the Rams. So I think it's a great pickup.
Well, I think it is too low, short term. The thing is, Detroit wasn't going to pay him the kind of money that he's looking for.
Right.
And, it's funny is my last guest, Jimmy Young, he's from the Upper Peninsula, and we always have great banter back and forth. And he said the Lions broke an unwritten rule, which back in the day, you never traded within your division. So It is kind of rare for the Lions to make a trade or anybody to make a trade in division. But, like everything else, those unwritten rules are starting to fall by the wayside. I love the trade for both sides. Short term, more for the Vikings. I think long term, we all know the Lions are on that 60-year rebuild. But, I mean, I love the stable of talent that you've got. Yes. In Minnesota right now. And in my opinion, there's no more excuses for Kirk Cousins. If he can't get you guys, at least on the offensive side of the ball, deep in the playoffs, I don't know what else he can do or what else you can do for him.
They have that underneath threat now that they didn't have before. And so with him and Cook and Thielen and, of course, Jefferson, that's a lot of weapons. That's as many weapons, I think, as any team has at this point. So I think it's a good move. And they have a great record right now, but the offense has been uneven at times. You watch them game to game, and you see the record, and you go, they have a great quarter, and then like last third quarter, nothing. So I think they need a little more consistency. I think he needs another little shorter target to throw to. I think they'll be in good shape.
Greg, it's funny is I watched a lot of football and the Lions, when you guys hosted the Lions, Detroit, I'm going to say it right now, they gave that game to you guys.
I completely agree.
I think Detroit had that one, and I think that was the backbreaker that started the slide for Detroit. And it's funny, Minnesota is 6-1, and I look at them almost like I look at Dallas. I don't think Minnesota's getting the same respect as Dallas is. Right. Dallas, I think Minnesota's a better team. Dallas, to me, was lucky to beat Detroit because they don't know how to throw a challenge flag, which is mind-boggling to me. It just set me off the edge. Right. But I don't want to say Minnesota looks like an underachieving team, but they're not. But they're 6-1. They can't be underachieving. But it just, to me, looks like they could still be a lot better. And I think that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
They're a team. No, I think you've nailed it on the head. I think they're a team that haven't put it all together.
Yeah.
Now, the pass rush, for instance, has been better the last 2 or 3 weeks, but before that it was non-existent. Darius Smith has gotten hot. So I think that's good. There's still questions on the offensive line and the interior of the offensive line. They finally got Cook going. This was Delvin Cook's first 100-yard game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's not happening. And the secondary is not getting any younger. Harrison Smith and Pat Peterson and those guys. So, they're vulnerable there. So I think this is a team that can play better, that hasn't put it all together. And I think the Green Bay game was probably their best all-around game. And that was the first game.
Well, just keep Kirk Cousins off of Monday Night Football, and I think you guys will be all right.
Any night game.
Exactly. We're joined by Greg Simbeck. He is our Vikings beat writer here up on Belly Up Sports. I invite you to check out all his work here and check out our website, bellyupsports.com. And we've got some great articles on there. You can find out our whole lineup of all of our podcast and our writers, everything. It's great to be a part of it. Very fortunate to be on the team here at Belly Up Sports and get to talk with some awesome people here like Greg Simbeck. Greg, sticking with the NFC North, before we get into the Bears trades, I watched this Packers team a little bit Sunday night. I watched the first half because some of us have to get up at 4:00 in the morning to go to work. But I look at this Packer team and I just shake my head. Now they're trying to take positives out of that loss. They're kind of sounding like the Lions, but man, it seems odd to see a Green Bay team that just does not look like they're anywhere close to. I mean, they still might get in the playoffs only because an 8-9 team might make it.
Yeah.
But wow, it's got to be good to be a Vikings fan right now with technically a 4-game lead over them.
It's almost astonishing to me. And just so you know, we're in a split household here. My wife is actually a Packer fan, and I'm a Vikings fan. So it's kind of interesting. And then we have a sister-in-law of hers who's a Bills fan. So we had everything Sunday night. Yeah. But, the Packers, I'll tell you what, offensively, their line's obviously hurting. They got Bakhtiari and a couple guys out on the line. He's getting pressured. And he doesn't have very many receivers right now. Now Lazard was out. So I like the looks of that Romeo Dobbs, but they're struggling offensively. Defensively is where it's kind of a mystery to me. They have 6 or 7 first-round draft choices that are starting on that defense. Yeah. And I know the first few weeks the problem was that Jerry Alexander and the cornerbacks were playing too far off. They were getting all those underneath balls on them. But defensively, and now Devontae Campbell might be out for a while, and he's the stud middle linebacker. They are a struggling team, and they look like a team that doesn't necessarily have the answers. They don't know what the answers are to kind of right the ship.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to me, too. I thought that they were going to be a much stronger on defense. Offensively, I wasn't quite surprised because we know Aaron Rodgers' track record is he doesn't trust anybody he doesn't know.
Right.
And I guess what's mind-boggling to me about Green Bay on the offensive side of the ball is they had an opportunity, I thought, with a two-headed monster at running back, and all of a sudden they waited till the second half of the Buffalo game to really get it going. And now they're like, oh, wow, the light bulbs went off, which isn't a good thing for me this Sunday because I'm going up to visit my dad who's living with my brother up about an hour north of Green Bay. And we're going into Packer country to watch the Packer line game on TV. It'll be a treat, but it's like, man, I thought this might be my chance. The Lions could really put a thumping on Green Bay, but can't trust Detroit at all. You no lead is safe with the Lions, but
you can't even trust the Packers at home anymore. Which is
I'm glad they're playing this game in Detroit. Maybe we got a shot at home in Lambeau. No. And speaking of that, I honestly thought with Lazard going down, I thought Green Bay would be active, maybe go after a guy like Chase Claypool or Brandon Cooks at the deadline today. And I'm flabbergasted that they didn't make a move. Maybe they tried, but maybe these teams just were offering more than they were willing to give. I don't know.
Maybe, but I didn't hear much of a peep from Gutekunst or anybody that they were even trying anybody out there. So, maybe it was behind the scenes and they were, but boy, if anybody was clamoring for a veteran receiver to come in, especially even just a possession receiver that can find the seams, it's the Green Bay Packers. Because he's looking for his, Jordy Nelson or Devontae Adams, and they're not out there.
Greg, I was a little surprised. I didn't think that Chicago was going to be in play for Claypool. I mean, I think it's a good pickup for
that one. That one really caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
I knew Claypool was going somewhere. I just didn't think he was going there.
No. It's funny because they cut ties with Roquan Smith and the other guy. Oh gosh, the name escapes me.
Robert
Right.
Quinn.
Yes. And I thought, well, they're like the Lions now. They're in total rebuild mode. But getting Claypool, I mean, I like the trade. I just didn't think they were in the market or they were in play for him.
No, but what a need especially with Fields playing so much better. Between him and Mooney now, they probably have the best wide receiver pair they've had in many a moon. And I think this is a trade that you'll have to sort of look at long term because the second round draft choice is kind of high for Claypool. Yeah. Because they've got Pickens there in Pittsburgh now too. So they, in a sense, Claypool was a little expendable, but it may work out great for the Bears. Like I said, Fields needed another target, and they got it for him. So, short term at least, I think it's a great trade.
It's funny, and just looking at the trade deadline in general in the NFL, I saw something tonight, and the name of the third player escapes me, but they said the trade now for Troy Lance is complete for the Dolphins. They got Waddle, they got Bradley Chubb, and I can't remember the third runner they got for the third player.
Nelson. Or no, Wilson. Jeff Wilson.
Yes, Jeff Wilson. And it's like, okay, who got the steal in this trade and this now? Yeah. And it's like, isn't it amazing how everybody gets a gut reaction initially with these trades? And I mean, initially maybe it looked okay for San Francisco, but boy, Miami, I thought, did themselves really, really well.
I've been talking about this all year, but I had the same reaction to this trade that I did to when Russell Wilson went to Denver and they gave up the players and the picks. And I went, I'm not sure Wilson is on the other side of his career.
Boy.
And they gave up a lot of capital, a lot of players, a tight end. And I thought, it's a slam dunk for Denver. This is all Denver needs, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of held back and said, I wouldn't judge that trade too quickly.
Well, it looked too good to be true, that trade. I'm glad you brought that up because I look at it and I think, they expect him to do what Tom Brady did, go right in and win a Super Bowl. And they didn't have the pieces that Tom Brady walked into. And then Tom Brady picked up Gronk, and he tried to be too much of a pocket passer. And then, of course, he had a coach that was unproven, that maybe fired at the end of the year. Is crazy.
It may not make the year.
Yeah. And then, I am so happy for Geno Smith. I just love that he's thriving out there. I'm not a big Pete Carroll fan. I think he was one step ahead of the law at USC, but, God bless him. He gets the best out of his players out there. And I'm with you. That trade, I thought, I don't know. Don't call him the king just yet. No. Just because Peyton Manning did it. Peyton Manning also had a defense behind him that this defense is starting to come together. But
the best defense in football.
He sure did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But crazy day though in the NFL for the trades, man. I didn't expect all of this to happen. I mean, I'm just looking at some of these other ones. I mean, even
how about Kelsey Ridley to Jacksonville, and he can't even play till next year.
I know. That's amazing. Hey, God bless Atlanta for getting picks for him. I thought they were going to outright release him.
I mean, I was just kind of I had forgotten about him obviously because he wasn't playing, and it's like, whoa. Well, I guess and the Roquan Smith trade is interesting to me because if they are only renting him, did they give up too much? They need him now.
Yeah.
And
You know,
but they said this isn't necessarily a deal where the Ravens will necessarily have him automatically for next year. He wants a big contract.
well, you know, and it's funny as all these trades today kind of overshadowed what I was going to talk to you about, which obviously is that Christian McCaffrey trade to San Francisco. I mean, at the surface, it looked like, well, you know, the guy's kind of like Hawkinson. He gets hurt a lot,
Right.
But I think they both are going to help their respective teams. And I look at it this way. I would rather be in a position, my Lions have never been in this position of trading for right now. You know, when my Red Wings back in the day, it was great seeing all the moves they made, the Tigers. But I love the trade right now for San Francisco. And if it works and gets them to the Super Bowl, great. Or, you know, just like your Vikings, you know, I mean, I love it. But I think that was such a blockbuster deal, that McCaffrey trade. I didn't see him going to San Francisco. I thought maybe the Rams.
No, you know, because they have pieces of running backs. They don't have any great running back, but it wasn't necessarily their biggest need. But I'll tell you, talk about a debut for a team, huh?
Oh,
throwing a pass, running one in, and catching one. I mean, that's it. If he stays healthy this year, and they, you know, seemingly go to the Super Bowl or make it, and you know, maybe if he even stays healthy a year or two, I mean, you got to be happy with that trade if you're a Niners fan.
Oh God, yes. I mean, to me, it's all results driven, and if they can get a Super Bowl again, I liken it to the Red Wings again. The Red Wings went 25 straight years to the playoffs. They went to 6 cups in 12 years, and now they're in which seems like an 8-year rebuild. But me growing up, I would take that all day long with the Lions. If the Lions could taste the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl, it'd be worth it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because I was like that when the Twins won the 2 World Series.
Oh yeah,
you know, in 87, 91, we were like, hey, bring it on, you know. We went through 4 Super Bowls. North Stars never won it. You know, I mean, we were like, and we haven't won it since. But
wow, that's funny.
100%.
Yeah, you guys, I remember in 87 because we made that trade for Doyle Alexander, giving up John Smoltz, and I thought that was going to put us over the edge. And I thought we had your Twins for sure winning 99 games. And boy, man, we got in that Homer Dome, and we were no match for you guys.
You know, and we had basically two good starters. We had Blyleven and Viola, but we had, you know, Puckett and Herbeck and, you know, Bransky. And I mean, we just,
oh my God.
We just, you know, when we were at home, we couldn't lose at home. And that's the field advantage in all the series.
Yeah.
So that really helps.
And that was amazing. I mean, we had Jack Morris. That was his swan song. And then before he came over to you guys. And yeah.
Well, I thought you guys were the better team. I mean, we didn't come close to 99 wins, but
that's just like with Jimmy, my last guest. We were talking about that with this year's World Series. Look at the Astros. Look at the Phillies. Are you telling me that they're better than 111 win LA Dodger team, 101 win Atlanta team? But you know, they got on a roll. They got hot just like you guys did. And man, momentum and your talent, you know, at the bat, just, you know, I think Detroit had better pitching that year, but we couldn't hit you guys. And you guys were able to put it together. And, you know, God bless you for that.
Same thing. It was what happened in the series. They go back to St. Louis and St. Paul. St. Louis wins, you know, 3-2 games, right?
Yeah.
And then we come back and win, you know, the famous Puckett game. And, you know, we win that one, I don't know, 8-6. And then we win the next night, like, you know, because we could hit the hell out of the ball at the Dome, right? And so, you know, once we were there, we were in good shape. But it was great, but it's been a long time now.
All the glory days, huh? I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You know, but now getting back to your Vikings, I think you know, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the year goes. And I know Irv Smith went on the IR, so I think, you know, now Hawkinson will get his chance. And he was a good dude with Detroit. I just, you know, again, when he's healthy, he was great. But
Right.
I just, obviously Detroit's in full rebuild mode. And unfortunately, I think we're stuck with Dan Campbell now for another year. I drank the Kool-Aid, Greg. I
I
did.
know.
Hard Knocks. I thought he had it, but my God, some of the decisions that he's made and his coaching staff have made this year, and it makes me think, if and don't take this personal, but stuff that you and I could see watching it on television, like throwing the challenge flags. It just, what are you thinking? And so
when he first got hired, I thought, oh, this guy's kind of a loose cannon,
mm-hmm.
And then the way they started the season, I mean, their first 4 games, they were in those. Like you said, they should have beat the Vikings. I mean, I'll just flat out say that.
Yeah,
they should have beat the Vikings, but yeah, it's kind of unraveled, and I think you're right. I think that Vikings game was kind of the start of the downward spiral. So.
What was crazy is they went, and they played Philly tough. We lost 38-35 and had a chance to win that one, but all right.
Yeah.
And then the Commanders, we won that one, should have won that, I thought. But yeah, the Vikings game was rough. But I think that, what for the Vikings, before I let you go, what is the biggest thing I think that, Greg, that you think the Vikings need to improve to keep this lead in the NFC North and at least get a playoff game? And if maybe not, the way they're looking right now, they have a good shot at the number 2 seed.
Yeah. I think staying healthy, they've stayed healthy. So I think that's been one thing, but I think the line play, I think, Bradbury and Ingram in the middle, I think they got to solidify, give Cousins more time. And I think Zadarius Smith, and I think Danielle Hunter, and they got to get Delvin Tomlinson might be hurt now, which is very bad because he's been playing good. I think they need to control that defensive line. I think they need to get a pass rush on the opponents. And I think that's going to be the key are the 2 lines.
That and keeping Kirk Cousins again off of Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a real quick moment in memoriam to Adam Zimmer, Mike Zimmer's kid. He was our defensive coordinator, he was offensive analyst for Cincinnati. And he died in his home at age 38. And I owned a horse with the Zimmers a couple of years ago, so I got to meet Adam, and nice kid, and just whatever happened, just a sad deal. So I just wanted to mention that.
I'm glad you did, because I saw that this afternoon or earlier this evening, and it just breaks your heart. It's way too young, man. It's way too young, and from all accounts, he was a superhuman being. And I know that everything that went on with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota, you see what's in front of the TV, but from what all the accounts I've heard away from the game, Mike was one hell of a nice guy.
Yep, and he was, and it's funny because Adam and I were walking through the tables when we went to visit the horse, and I was kind of asking him about the linebackers. I was asking him about Troy Dye, and he was, he's kind of an understated guy, but just super nice guy, and just. A loss for the family and football. So
yeah, our hearts and our prayers and thoughts and condolences are out to the Zimmer family for sure. Yes. Well, Greg, this has been fun. I appreciate you taking time out tonight. I'm glad we're able to connect on the show, and would love to have you back on down maybe towards December, when I know you guys will be playing. Looking forward to playing some meaningful games in January. I'd love to have you on. Well, thanks for having me on, Lou. I'll come back anytime. I really enjoyed it. I love your show. All right. We'll get you on at the end of the year, right? I think the last week of the year, or second to last week, I think we play you guys because we close with Green Bay. So we'll get you on that week, and we'll wrap about your playoff position then in the NFL by then. Thank you, sir. Have a great night. You bet. You too. Thanks, Greg. Greg Simbeck, Vikings beat writer for Belly Up Sports, joining us live here tonight on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We're gonna wrap it up here in a little bit. Just kind of wanted to let everybody know again how you can be a part of the show. Is just follow us on Twitter at The Real Captain Lou, or follow our Facebook page, The Captain Lou Extravaganza, or follow us on or send me an email if you'd like at sweetlou1965@yahoo.com. And also remember, we are getting my website back up with my blogs. It's captainlou.net. Kind of been away from that for a while, but with the kind of a crazy summer for me, early fall, and especially this time of year with my involvement with high school sports, doing play-by-play here in Michigan. I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's a labor of love, and I would not have it any other way. I've got such a supportive wife who lets me do all of this. It's definitely been a very busy time for me, but I really, really enjoy it. So anyways, those are the ways that you can get a hold of us here on the show. I want to thank Greg Simbeck for joining us here tonight. Also, Jimmy Young, one of our favorite guests. Love having Jimmy on. Great banner back and forth as well. Just want to close again, talking a little bit about the Michigan and Michigan State game and, the fracas that happened afterwards. I listened. It's funny being right in the center of it, living about 20 minutes from East Lansing and about an hour from Ann Arbor, a little over an hour. This was our time to shine on Saturday night with the Michigan State game. Now, I know the Spartans were, 3-4 going into the game, and they were coming off a win over Wisconsin. Michigan, of course, undefeated, ranked number 4 or number 5 in the country, depending on what poll you went to. They always say you could throw the records out the window in this game. The line was 22.5. That was crazy. I thought, Michigan State's going to keep it close. It was evident that Michigan was the better team on the field. And it's like I was talking to Jimmy, and I mentioned how, I've been kind of I banter back and forth with I've got a little chat group with my 2 brother-in-laws and a couple of good friends of mine. They're all Spartan fans. A couple of them, 2 or 3 of them I think 3 of them are Spartan grads. And the other one he's worked with Mel Tucker quite a bit. And it helps keep things in perspective. It's tough for me because, your initial reaction is, well, you want to blame Mel Tucker. You can't blame him for that, what those kids did. Is he responsible for it? Maybe he is. Ultimately, okay. I give him credit. He's working on it. He's suspended 8 players. He's doing what he has to do. And I give him credit. He could take the easy way out and wait and wait and wait. But the video is pretty self-explanatory. But it also bothers me too, with kind of the arrogance of some of the players on Michigan, after the game. I guess I'm old school. And there's no nobility and humility anymore. I'm all about somebody expressing themselves. But when the Michigan players, when Blake Corum goes up there on the dais right after the game and starts dogging Mel Tucker, take the high road. I know this is a heated rivalry, and I want it to stay a heated rivalry on the field, but it's so toxic now. And I hope down the road it gets fixed. I mean, from a layman sitting away from the game, not being in that tunnel, they've used that tunnel for 100 years. It's never been this big of an issue. You would think that they could beef up the security for big games like this, Ohio State or Penn State, or when Michigan State comes to town. They're going to have to. It just seems so simple. Let one team in at a time. Now, those 2 players from Michigan, they were bird brains for doing what they did, going in there and skipping and whatnot. But that didn't warrant getting pummeled and getting helmets thrown at them. That was Michigan State players acting stupid, and they deserve to be suspended. Is it going to be charged? Is there going to be assault charges? I don't know. I certainly hope not. I don't want to see it. It makes me long for the days when we can have banter back and forth with Michigan and Michigan State fans. And yeah, you're pissed off that your team loses, but you're over it in a couple of days, and then it fuels back up next year. I'm glad Michigan won on the field, but I still feel like it feels hollow. I want to brag about it, but it's like we've got such a black eye now in the national spotlight. I say the state of Michigan. And like Jimmy said earlier, it's a black eye on sports in general because these kids are acting like hooligans. It shouldn't have to be like that. And I know I'm being maybe Pollyannic with that, but it really bothers me. I'm troubled by it. I love to watch football. Everybody knows that. I'll be watching the games this weekend. But it's like I told Jimmy, I said, and a good friend of mine, Greg Pond, brought this up to me. He messaged me on Facebook Messenger. He's like, as bad as some of the rivalries are in hockey with Michigan or with any college, the pro teams, you see Detroit and Colorado back in the day slugging it out 7 games or whoever. They shake hands. High school games, they go right in the middle of the field. They shake hands. You watch these high school games in the playoffs. I saw something up in North Branch on Friday night where they played my team, as Jimmy mentioned, Freeland, 61-41, back and forth all night. You could tell that, there was some chirping back and forth. You get that. But at the end of the day, everybody shook hands. And then the North Branch team got in a circle in the middle of the field and saluted the crowd. And it just was so classy. That's missing. Maybe I'm just yearning for something that'll never happen again. Because I think part of it are these players that are playing in college ball now. They've lived kind of a life where they've been put on a pedestal their whole life as athletes, and they get away with this shit, and they're never called out on it, and now they are, and they don't know how to handle it. I think it's kind of ironic, too, that the first 4 players suspended from Michigan State, none of them lived or were raised in Michigan. They're all from different parts of the country. And I don't know if that means anything, but it's kind of ironic that they didn't have a stake in this rivalry until they got here. So they don't know the true meaning of the Michigan State rivalry. It saddens me. It doesn't make it fun anymore. It is so toxic. And I know this stuff goes on in other situations like this throughout the country, in other college games. And I know Mel Tucker, and the reason I brought up that my brother-in-law knows Mel Tucker, he's talked to him. He is a disciplinarian, but he can't hold their hands for, 65 minutes every Saturday afternoon or Saturday night. He can't be 5 different places at once. I can't directly blame him for what happened in that tunnel, as I can't blame Jim Harbaugh. And for those that are blaming Jim Harbaugh for this, you need to get your head out of where. Okay? I mean, you can only tell players so many times that they can't act like knuckleheads. But, it's if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. So here's the hoping that maybe the rivalry just gets back somewhat the way it used to be. I know it'll never be the same. And this is going to be an ugly cloud hanging over Ann Arbor and East Lansing whenever these 2 teams play. Michigan State's got a lot of issues right now, off the field and on the field. They don't need this. But I think they do got the right guy for the job in Mel Tucker. I think he's going to handle it. I think he's going to do really well to handle it. And this is coming from a guy who bleeds maize and blue. I'm a fan of Mel Tucker. I truly believe that he wants to run a strict program there, a very disciplined program. I truly believe that. But unfortunately, he's going to get the black eye from this. Michigan State's already got it. And, as much as they try to get away from it, stuff like this, it just seems like they just can't win for losing. Michigan, they got to look in the mirror too. They got to figure out a different way to do this in that tunnel. I know it's worked for 95 years, but it doesn't now, especially with the big rivalries. You've got to get extra security. They got to do something. Let the home team in first. Or it just seems so simple. There's got to be a reason why it's not simple. I guess I'm just not smart enough to figure it out. But hey, here's to the big games this weekend. If you get a chance, go see a high school football game, playoff games around the country. See where the passion is. A lot of these kids are going to be playing their last game on Friday or Saturday. The finality of it is going to be the hardest part. I know it's always tough for me when the team that I'm watching or that I cover, when they finally play that last game. It takes me a few days to get over it. But that's the beauty of high school sports, because you get to watch these kids and the passion that they exude, and it's awesome. And I just, as much as I think the passion is there for college, I don't know. It's just something like this just sours the taste in my mouth. But here's the hoping that it changes. And if you get a chance to watch some high school games, watch the college games this weekend. Georgia and Tennessee is going to be a dandy. Clemson and Notre Dame is going to be a decent one. So we got some good games, and of course the NFL, and of course the World Series. A lot of high school sport, a lot of football coming up this weekend. Hey, this reminder, next week, check it out. We're going to have another edition of the ACHA Power Play 2. We're going to get that back rolling here on the Captain Lou Sports Network and the Belly Up Pod Network. So stick around for that. We've got some other surprises in the works. As soon as I get them buttoned down, we're going to let you know about it right away. All right, that's going to do it for the Captain Lou Extravaganza tonight. Want to thank my guest, Jimmy Young, for coming on. My favorite Youper. He's got all the insight. Great to talk history with him, and also what's going on in the world of sports with his perspective. And also Greg Simbeck, our beat writer for the Vikings here on Belly Up Sports. I want to thank you, the viewer, as well. All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll see you next week. This reminder, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, and as always, keep your minds open. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza on the Captain Lou Sports Network. So long.